The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Coat Arms Paints, and Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine, as well as the generous donations of you, the listener. Many thanks to everyone for your continued support. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 105, Achtung, Cthulhu, with guest Chris Birch. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast with me, your host Neil Shook. On today's show we are talking to Chris Birch from the company Modiphius about a Kickstarter that is in its last few days as we record this on the 25th of March, and that is the Kickstarter for Achtung, Cthulhu. Now, I don't normally talk about role-playing games on Meeples and Miniatures. In this particular instance, Achtung, Cthulhu could be something that's slightly different. Obviously, it seems its main thrust is as an RPG supplement, but it brings the Cthulhu mythos into an alternative World War II universe, which is of particular interest to me, as I'm really interested in alternative World War II. I've got collections with things like the Project X range of minis, and the Incursion board game, which is part of Secrets of the Third Reich from Westwind, and so this is of particular interest from that side of things. And, you know, of course, who doesn't like Lovecraft? Now, as we'll find out in the interview, Achtung, Cthulhu isn't just about role-playing game, but we've got minis and also a board game as well. So it kind of starts to cover the sort of thing that Meeples and Miniatures looks at, which is why I was quite keen to just speak to Chris. Now, I've been trying to get this interview sorted for probably 2 or 3 weeks now, and with one thing or another we just simply haven't had a chance to get together, which is one reason why this interview is coming out only a few days before the Kickstarter finishes, as opposed to 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I have to offer my apologies for that. However, I hope you find the chat I have with Chris interesting, and even if it's too late to get on board with the Kickstarter, I hope you'll check out the miniatures, the potential board game, and also when Achtung, Cthulhu finally gets launched. So I'll take a quick break and then we'll come back with my interview with Chris Birch from Modiphius.
I don't like it, Sergeant. Me neither, sir. Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it Hi-Go, Hugo, sir. Hi-Go, Hugo? Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. Oh, not like it? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, look, sir, lummy. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, hi go, you go, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir. Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of I go, you go systems? Ironbeam Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. Two fat lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
Well, I'm very pleased to welcome to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast, Chris Birch from Modiphius. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show.
How are you? Fine, thanks a lot.
Bit of a cold, as you might hear, but it's great to finally speak to you. If you've been following the blog, you'll know that I've kind of been chatting to Chris for 2 or 3 weeks now, and it's just been one of these things that, life being as it is, we've it's been ships that pass in the night, but we've finally managed to get together. So Chris is on the show today to talk about a Kickstarter that, well, we're recording this on the 25th of March. The Kickstarter's got 7 days to go. And it's a Kickstarter for Achtung, Cthulhu. Before we get into that, Chris, I just want to ask you, how did you actually get into gaming in the first place?
Good question. Well, I still remember, and I don't know when it was, but I still remember playing soldiers with toy soldiers, plastic tanks and airfix with my neighbour Johnny when I was probably about, 8 or 9. And I still remember suddenly think, why don't we roll some dice to see whose soldiers get knocked over rather than just knocking them over.
Yeah.
Not long after, probably a year or so later, I remember my brother and his girlfriend getting me to play basic Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, wow.
And funnily enough, the character we were playing In Search of the Unknown, that classic underground lair that makes complete sense.
Yes.
Why would you build a room at the end of a maze with all your important stuff in? Anyway, and I remember my first character, Brandon Carter, who's the sergeant in miniature in our Achtung Cthulhu game. And he was this, I think you should always be suspicious when a GM gives you a suit of plate armor as a first level character.
Oh, indeed, yes.
Yeah. And guess what? I fell through the pit trap at the end of the first corridor and drowned in the lake underneath. And for some reason, I've always called my role-playing characters Brandon Carter ever since, in memory of that first role-playing experience.
Scarred you for life, then?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, obviously. He came back as son of Brandon Carter. But yeah, so that little character's kind of stuck in my mind. That was my first experience, and I played a lot of war games. Got my brother into playing 15mm Napoleonic war games. When I was a teenager, I started playing the first board game I got was Steve Jackson's Ogre.
Oh, right.
I remember, I think I was about 9 when I got that, and I remember scratching my head over these like combat ratios, trying to figure out how to work it, but loving it. This kind of new, exciting little board game that was nothing like Trivial Pursuit or Monopoly. That all about a giant cyber tank, against the sort of horde of little tanks and infantry. And those games stuck with me, and I grew more into it. And then I remember playing Metamorphosis Alpha, which is kind of like the post-apocalyptic role-playing game set on a dying colony ship. And then I went on to play things like Star Frontiers, and then running lots of D&D games at college, and doing more war games. And then I remember in the 90s, I was kind of away from it a bit, and then kind of got back into it. And a friend of mine, Angus Abranson, was setting up Cubicle 7, the games company.
Yeah.
And I was doing video games inspired T-shirts with a brand called Joystick Junkies that I started. And we were licensing these old comics from the UK called Star Blazer. Nothing to do with the anime cartoon, but these kind of classic old British comics that were black and white and a whole story in 70 pages. And they had a sister comic called Commando, a World War II comic. Yeah. And I said to Angus, there's so much art in these comics. You should use it for a role-playing game, because we all know that role-playing games often suck in terms of how much good art is in them. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, why don't you write it? It was a fatal words, because I'm like, all right, then that sounds like a great idea. And of course, 3 years of blood, sweat and tears later, I finally managed to create this monstrosity, this Frankenstein of a role-playing game, the Star Blazer Adventures, which turned out to be 636 pages.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
that's not bad for your first one, is it?
Small book. And it was, half of it was Spirit of the Century, the Fate game rewritten in a space opera style, and half of it was all new rules. It was a fantastic opportunity, and I loved every minute of it, and I hated lots of the minutes trying to finish it and realizing that you still haven't finished there's the index to do, and there's the editing to do, and it would seem like it was never going to end. But I'm so glad I went through it all. And it was also, I also hated the fact that a lot of role-playing games, you buy the book and then you realise that you've got 10 supplements to buy because you didn't get the starship building rules, and you didn't get the campaign rules, and you didn't get this, and you didn't get that. Yeah. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick it all in one book, and you can all shut up. And of course, everyone complained that it was too big. So anyway, but it was it was like the ultimate space opera toolkit. You can pretty much do anything with it. And I just stuck everything in there, and it was all based on sort of this Fate fractal Fate is much loved for, because you can do anything with the same core rules. And I tend to use that with all the new games I develop now. I don't see why you should complicate. If you've got a great system, use that same system for everything in the game. Don't try and make new systems. And when we did Legends of Anglaire with Sarah Newton, which was basically the fantasy version of Star Blazer, based on the same comics, but the fantasy comics they did. Mm-hmm. And I sort of stuck to my idea of, let's not create new systems, let's do cool stuff with the same system, and that kind of worked really well. Right. And we had a great team on that, lots of people. And me and Sarah Newton were bouncing around ideas, as you do when you're writers, going, wouldn't it be cool to do a World War II Fate game next? And it's just one of those ideas. You go, well, yeah, great, but we've got to finish this, and you kind of shelve it. And then I started thinking about, and this is end of 2011, I started thinking about, wouldn't it be great to do some games again? I'd had a break for a while, recovered my gaming mojo to write, and decided to, and I was just exploring ideas. I was thinking about miniatures and games and all kinds of books and stuff. And I'd been working on the idea. I was playing Flames of War, the 15mm World War II game, with some friends. And so I'm still a big war gamer. And we'd always say, wouldn't it be great to have some zombies at 15mm and big monsters, and just do some crazy sort of, weird war battles at some point. And we started thinking about whether we could do that commercially. Could we pitch a supplement? And then I thought, you know what, I want to do something that we own. We're not just doing a supplement or a license of someone else's project. Yeah. So I started formulating the idea of Achtung Cthulhu. And Sarah Newton came to me with a campaign that she'd been working on called 0 Point that fitted the concept perfectly. And if you know anything about working in gaming, everyone would say, whatever you do, don't do an adventure first, because in theory, only 1 in 6 people would buy an adventure because they're the GM and no one else has a reason to buy them. Yeah. But it was a phenomenal success. And I think that's partly down to Sarah being an incredible writer. Dim Martin, our artist that we got on board, being an amazing artist. Mm-hmm. Mikhail Cross, our layout artist, making it look beautiful, and maps. And then we did loads of marketing and PR. And I used to work in marketing, the Joystick Junkies business I had. Yeah. It was all about promoting and Facebook and Twitter and, basically doing loads of PR and getting people to write about you without having to spend loads of money. And so I used all those experiences to promote Achtung Cthulhu. And if you Google Achtung Cthulhu now, you'll see stupid amounts of coverage for it, because we work really hard, and I think a lot of people, there's the old saying, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Mm. And there's a reason why there's not many people. Well, there are lots of people that release games. There's very few that make money. And the reason is because it's a lot of hard work, and a lot of people do it for fun, and that's great. But if you want to make a business out of it, and there are people who make a living out of it, but if you want to make a business, though, you've got to work very hard, and you've got to work every night and every day, and keep going. And that's what I did, and with a day job at the same time. Hmm. And luckily I have a beautiful wife who is very understanding and feeds me chocolate biscuits and tea as I'm working away. And also helps as well. She helps run the business now. Yeah. Keeps me sane. Mm-hmm. So, so that's where I got to. And we started doing these first releases on PDF and teamed up with Angus Branson again, who's got his own business, Chronicle City now. Yeah. We both have a love actually for inspiring other people to create, and he first inspired me to create, and so I kind of got this business going. And the name Modiphius comes actually from the Star Blazer wasn't really the first game; it was the first commercial game. But I wrote with a friend of mine, Stuart Newman, a game called Blaster Array, which was a really fun miniatures and role-playing game that we wrote together in the 90s just for a laugh, and we just used photocopied artwork from other games for fun and just to try it out. And I remember we even demoed it at Dragon Meet back in the 90s.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, it was good fun, and it worked really well. And it was set in a artificially engineered solar system by this ancient race who used psionic power to control everything, and the solar system was called Modiphius, and had come about from the word modified and the fact that they modified this system, and we wanted it was a unique word that we dreamt up drinking too much Diet Coke and pizza at 6 a.m.
As you do, yes.
Yeah, spawning new ideas for games and storylines. The number of timelines we've written of futuristic worlds is getting ridiculous. So Modiphius has been this name that stuck with me for a long time, and because Angus inspired me to write games, and I want to use Modiphius to inspire other people to write and create, that became a great name for the business. In a way, it's taken on a new meaning now. I've got a friend in Greece who is producing some fantastic scenery for our miniature games, and he was telling me about these ancient warriors called the Silver Shields, and the Silver Shields were Alexander's they were the oldest soldiers. They would always be at the back of the phalanx in case the young soldiers lost their will and decided to run, and they'd be like, get back to the front, and they'd be the sort of example that everyone would want to live by. And they got to like 30 or 40 or even 50, silver bearded old dudes who'd been through so many battles, and that's probably saying something to have lived that long back in those days. So I imagine this bearded old guy with a really battered shield and an old spear sitting on the ruins of a Greek temple, telling all these kids all these mad stories of other worlds and monsters and creatures and magic and adventures, and inspiring all of them to become great heroes and explorers and warriors. And so that Modiphius has become this sort of little story about this old warrior, kind of inspiring the next generation.
Right. Okay.
And so that's where we got to today. And the business has been formed. We've got various people working for us in design and art now, which has happened all very quickly as a result of the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing all my experience of the past few years, doing marketing and running, I've been running big web stores for huge video games, selling all their merchandising and doing lots of production of merchandising. So, in a way, Kickstarter puts you in the middle of suddenly having a huge opportunity, but a huge commitment to fulfill lots of potentially happy or potentially very unhappy customers.
Yeah.
Having had to do that every week for the last 2 years has actually been quite good training. And at the time, I didn't really particularly enjoy it, but now I see that it's actually going to pay off, hopefully.
So you mentioned that you were doing some Flames of War and thought it would be really good to put it into an alternative World War II universe. What made you choose the Cthulhu universe?
Good question. Well, you know what? Weird War's great fun, and I love playing the Call of Duty World at War level with the zombies in the farmhouse. Brilliant fun. But Weird War is, werewolves and zombies and, hellhounds and stuff like that. But there's no real kind of all-encompassing plot. And I love big stories and big plots. And there's something bigger than the story in front of you that you have to discover, and then it unveils something even bigger and more mind-expanding. And that's kind of what Cthulhu is. And from just a commercial point of view, I looked at World War II is really popular, Cthulhu's really popular, so stick the two together is a bit of a no-brainer. That's going to sell books, surely. And I was amazed that no one had done it yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, also, that's something that struck me, was the fact that I was quite surprised that this appeared to be the first time somebody had ever thought about putting it together. I mean, as you say, Weird War, World War II is a genre that's been around for quite a few years now, hasn't it, really? And
popular as well. I mean, the Savage Worlds Weird War books did very well. The D20 books did well. There's lots of people who have done Weird War stuff. And it's been hugely popular. And to be honest, a lot of it crosses over. I mean, there's zombies in Cthulhu stuff. I mean, early Cthulhu books had zombies and werewolves and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But, there's a lot of typical Weird War stories about demons trapped inside tanks and stuff like that you could easily sit inside a Cthulhu storyline. But the difference is the Cthulhu storyline has got a plot and a bigger reason, and there is the bigger entities and elder gods that are manipulating all of these creatures and stories for a bigger purpose. Whereas in a Weird War story, you just got a bunch of soldiers that discover a demon in a tank and they deal with it and they carry on, and that's it. There isn't a reason why. Well, yeah, okay, maybe the reason why the demon's in the tank is because he was trapped there back in the war and but the Cthulhu has this bigger plot, a bigger idea, and I love big ideas and the idea that actually you discover that there's these elder gods and that they're trying to reawaken Cthulhu, and that there's much more for you to discover as a player, and there's much more fun to be had as a GM, Yeah. So I was drawn more to that. I mean, I was never really a massive Cthulhu fan, and then Angus suggested I read Mountains of Madness, or At the Mountains of Madness. And one thing I am is, I love stories about ancient ruined cities and explorers, and that is that all over. It's a perfect kind of horror story in an ancient ruin. And that really turned me on to the whole kind of Cthulhu mythos and the idea of these ancient, elder gods fighting it out between each other over the earth, and we just kind of get in the way from time to time. That I just really got excited about that, and I love the idea of Antarctica and all that sort of storyline, which is why we've gone back to do Assault on the Mountains of Madness as one of our big campaigns. That's kind of why we did it, really.
The one thing that also kind of caught my imagination, I mean, normally, listeners will know that I don't normally cover role-playing games, but as soon as you started talking about miniatures, and I've noticed that one of the more recent updates, you're now starting talking about potentially a board game and a few other bits and pieces. I was thinking, oh, hang on a second, there's some cross concepts going on here. Yeah. There's potentially so much bigger than just a role-playing arena going on. Yeah. So, do you want to kind of expand on that a bit more about what your idea is and where and the whole thing behind Achtung Cthulhu and where you're looking to go with it?
Well, I mean, basically, I never imagined it just as a role-playing game. I imagined it as anything. It can be anything. Maybe it's a movie one day or a TV series. Who knows? But I mean, right now it's a role-playing game, but there's no reason it couldn't become miniatures, and it couldn't become a board game, and it couldn't become some fiction. Yeah. So, but I always love hooking up with people. So I discovered the Heroes of Normandy Kickstarter, which is this awesome World War II Hollywood-style board game.
Yes.
And they're these mad French dudes. And I got in touch with them and said, hey guys, how about doing an Achtung Cthulhu expansion? And they were like, hell yeah. And so we did this deal to do, if they hit a stretch goal, we'll do an official expansion. We're going to do one anyway down the line. If they hit their goal, then we'll do it as part of their Kickstarter. So that's really exciting. I'm thinking of doing a board game next year that's, I love things like Defenders of the Realm, the co-op game, and I love like Axis and Allies type games. And I think it's crying out for an Achtung Cthulhu sort of Axis and Allies style European investigative and action game.
Yeah.
And of course, now we have this fantastic set of tiles that are going to be drawn by Henning Ludvigsen that we've unlocked, who did Mansions of Madness and the amazing tiles in Descent 2nd edition. I mean, the Fantasy Flight games are really brilliant. I love Mansions of Madness. So we've got an amazing set of tiles for a Nazi underground base and snow-covered outpost and the Elder Things ruined city in Antarctica. And we've now got some miniatures. So we've kind of got the bare bones of a miniatures board game. So that's kind of on the horizon. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've also announced we've got One War, which is a really fun miniatures game we've been developing as a kind of, when you got a bucket load of cool figures and you just want to have a really big game and not get bogged down and just want it to be play really fast and fun. And it plays with cards. It's got, you can play solo against the game. It will move units around in a really fun way. We had the game we played the other day, me and Nick, who's developing it. We had like 3 or 4 squads aside, some vehicles and support units. And there was a bunch of zombies moving, like hidden zombie units moving around on the table. And they were attacking us and moving around. And we played a really great game in about 2 hours. Yeah. And so we've introduced that as part of the Kickstarter as an add-on. It's going to be our kind of fun sort of miniatures war game system as well. So, because of my love for war games, I had to kind of bring that in. Yeah. And the great thing is it's, people said, it's, why are you adding in miniatures? It's a role-playing Kickstarter. Well, look, lots of people love miniatures, and what it's done is it's unlocked the Kickstarter so it's interesting for miniatures collectors, and so they're putting money in, and that's meant we're hitting more stretch goals that benefit the role-playing. So we've not been able to do as much on the miniatures that I'd liked. I mean, the designers at Clockwork Goblin have gone away on a family holiday now, and it's life. So we've got a bunch of really great-looking concept art, some great-looking CGI sculpts for the first designs. And so we posted the heroes yesterday. Yeah. We're posting the first miniatures concepts and a couple of sculpts later this week. And we left it to the end of the Kickstarter because we did our research and people wanted us to focus on the role-playing game, so we did. Right. And then we brought the miniatures in at the end, and we've been able to fund a few things. I'm sure we could have done a lot more if we did just a miniatures Kickstarter, so maybe we'll do that next year. Yeah. But what we've said is, trust us. These, you can see the initial designs look amazing, and if for whatever reason you do back the miniatures, but you don't then like the sculpts that we do, we're just going to refund your pledge. Simple as that.
Oh wow, okay.
So, but we're that convinced that people are going to absolutely love them and they're going to get great value for money. That it's an easy thing to do. So,
just as far as the miniatures are concerned, are they going to be producing the kind of standard, kind of heroic 28mm sort of stuff?
That's right. Yes, yeah, it's the heroic style 28mm. The first, what you've got is 6 allied investigators. And then 6 kind of classic Cthulhu creatures who are potential kind of troop types. So the idea is if we hit one of those last goals, we're going to be unlocking a load of extra poses. So you can have, people have seen a deep one sculpt online already.
Oh yeah, that is a superb sculpt. It has to be said.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got wearing a Tommy gun as a Thompson machine gun. He's wearing a Thompson machine gun as a pendant. Yes. People are like, yeah, but you wouldn't be able to use that. It's like, he doesn't need to use it.
Yes. I mean, it's just the German helmet with the head still in it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah. So, we're hoping to do a few more sculpts of the deep one. There's some other ideas we've got, and there's got some Nazi zombies there. There are some other really great creatures coming that Dim's doing the concept art at the moment for, and there's a Migo that we've kind of partly finished. So yeah, there's some really fun stuff. And the Allied investigators are kind of going back to what Achtung Cthulhu is it's this massive sandbox of Cthulhu investigations in World War II. So you've got the core the investigator and keeper's guide that tell you all about what the players need to know and the GM needs to know, all the secret plots, all the new rules you need to know, all the creatures that are kind of unique to this setting, equipment, etc. Very much basically everything that you need to know about the secret war that isn't in the history books, and how to play it as part of Call of Cthulhu or Savage Worlds, and now the Fate core system.
Yeah.
So, there's an immense amount of material.
I mean, as somebody who is... Well, I mean, I haven't played a role-playing game for probably more years than I care to remember at this point in time. I mean, is it one of these things that, for example, could you just download the quick start rules for Call of Cthulhu, pick up your source rules, and then play the game?
That's a good question, actually. You probably could get quite far with just the quick start rules. I mean, you wouldn't be able to create full new characters, but you'd be able to use some of our pre-generated characters, and you could probably guess. You wouldn't have the full experience, but you could get by for long enough to know whether it's something you want to play properly or not. And and then of course you've got the Savage Worlds, and you can get there's a free Savage Worlds download that is an introduction to the Savage World rules. So you could definitely get enough of a taste of what it's about to know whether you want to spend the extra money to get the full Call of Cthulhu rules or Savage World rules.
We've got these two core books. The Keeper's Guide and the Investigator's Guide, and then you have a whole load of other publications that you've been going through. Yeah,
we unlocked a lot of stuff. I was starting to get worried that we wouldn't have anything else to sell.
Yeah, because I mean there is a lot of stuff that's going to become available, isn't there?
That's right. So we've unlocked 3 regional guides: the Eastern Front, the North African and Middle Eastern Front, and the Pacific Front. Then we've unlocked, they're 128-page books each, kind of regional versions of the Keeper's Guide. And the Keeper's Guide is very much focused on the Germans and Allies, the Western Front in Europe.
Yeah.
Then we've got 2 big campaigns, Shadows of Atlantis, which is all about the Nazis' obsession with Atlantis. And they really were obsessed. They wanted to prove the link between this ancient master race and them, of course. So what we've said is that actually there was a hidden sort of ulterior motive, which was they actually wanted the technology of Atlantis. And of course, this is Cthulhu after all, and nothing happens without the mythos being involved. So what they don't realise is that there's this sort of ancient fragments of technology from the distant past are inextricably linked to the dark mythos. And the Nazis are chasing around the world to all these the ruins of ancient civilizations to find this cool stuff, and for a big secret plot that's running through the book. And the Allies are, desperately pursuing them, doing a lot of investigative action, and we're trying to give various ways through the storyline so that it's not like, okay, you're going to have to go and have a big battle now. You can think your way around things. So big storyline there running around the world, and then you've got Assault on the Mountains of Madness, which is a big plot leading up to the expedition to Antarctica, big return to Lovecraft's sort of secret Antarctica, and the Allies discover the Nazis have infested the continent and are crawling all over these ancient Elder City ruins, and you've got to stop them from doing some terrible stuff which would basically end the world. Yeah. And as the Nazis have a habit of trying to do. That's going to be great fun. The tiles that we've done with Henning Ludvigsen are tied into that. There's going to be some. I mean, the book we're just unlocking now, the full color hardcover book, and it's going to be packed full of this stunning movie style concept art by Kurang, who's our Japanese artist, and he's got this kind of name that you feel like you should be standing on the top of a mountain shouting it at the gods. So it's going to be a stunning book. And then we've also unlocked a load of PDF documents, sort of handouts, ID cards, secret orders and telegrams, and a crossover with the Interface 2.0 Savage Worlds system, which is a cyberpunk setting for Savage Worlds. And they were doing a Kickstarter, and rather than just promote each other's, we just, well, why don't we do something quite cool? So we came up with this free supplement that everyone got when we both hit a secret stretch goal, which they are writing a 60-page piece on super soldier experiments during the war to time with Achtung, Cthulhu, and we're writing an adventure that is what happens when those super soldier experiments are linked to the mythos and it goes horribly wrong. And it's this free supplement that everyone gets in both Kickstarters.
Right.
So that was really fun. And then we've got this other book that's coming up called Terrors of the Secret War. And that's basically massive elder gods and creatures and giant war machines from the Secret War, regional kind of mythos entities that might have been awoken in the Pacific or the Eastern Front, and how to fight them. And that's not just how to cut their ghoulies off. It's basically, how to outthink a elder god or giant creature, because let's face it, if you go up against them, you're going to end up as a little green smear.
Yeah.
It's sort of phrased in terms of Savage Worlds and Call of Cthulhu way darker and more dangerous. So whereas Savage Worlds, you can be a bit more pulpy, you can be going guns blazing, riding a Sherman tank up against the creature. So we're kind of giving a plot. So it's not like a monstrous compendium. It's very much here's a big bad guy. Here's why it's probably in your campaign and some plot ideas and why it's there, how it appears, and how to defeat it using your brains or your fists, basically, or very, very big guns. So that's going to be brilliant fun.
Yeah.
And then we've got a bunch of stuff still to come that is more about, we said last night, look, what we're going to try and avoid now is unlocking yet more books, because what we'd rather do now is make what we're doing much better quality, and we want to print the tiles and finish this hardcover and some more stuff like that. So
one thing I have noticed is that you've actually staged the pledge levels really well with whatever level people can even afford to get in at, right down to the point where, for example, if you just wanted to get everything on PDF, there's even just that opportunity to do that, isn't there?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So that's the amazing, and I think I do love giving value for money, because let's face it, is that everyone getting involved is helping create the Achtung Cthulhu universe. They're bringing it to life much quicker than it would have been brought to life. And so I love the idea of giving back lots of value for money. So, for $1,250, for £35, so about 58 bucks, I think it is, you get 1,256 pages of PDF. And actually, we've just added another set of the Keepers and Investigators Guide by unlocking the Fate rulebook. And with, when Terrors of the Secret War gets unlocked, then that's another 128 pages. So you're probably talking about 2,000 pages of PDF.
Yeah, because you got that, you got the tiles and all that sort of thing, all included even at that level, haven't you?
Yes, that's right. So you get the tiles as PDFs as well. And we haven't unlocked the print version of that, so that's to come. And we're announcing a big collector's set this week, which is a beautiful investigator's kit bag with leather and canvas and a embossed Achtung Cthulhu logo on it. And so there's going to be a special edition of that with what's called the Secret War edition of the rulebook, which is of the two guides, the two core books together in a kind of leather-bound volume in this bag with some other goodies. And that will be a kind of big pledge level. And then, but you'll be able to get the Secret War book as an add-on. So I've been trying to not just take the out of people going, oh yeah, just give us loads of money, but try and make some fair pledges. And we went out of our way to recalculate all the shipping. Unfortunately, is horrifically expensive, but we managed to find a few options to get people's stuff in stages. and we're also looking at whether people can pick stuff up from us at, Dragon Meet and Essen, and we're even going to do an Achtung Cthulhu Day in the new year in London as well, and maybe something in America,
Right.
to kind of bring people together as well, so they can pick stuff up.
It's obviously something that sounds tremendously well organised. I mean, is this the first Kickstarter you've done?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
But luckily, I've been working my ass off managing some big web stores for the last 2 years, which have been shipping hundreds of products every week for video games. So we've been doing like the T-shirts and posters and stuff like that, and dealing with all the problems of running a house, product being late and doing the production and all those issues. And so as much as I didn't really enjoy it at the time, because I enjoy more the creative side, it's actually given me a really good grounding. So I know all the problems that, and of course there will be problems. As much as we can say, yeah, it's all going to be perfect, don't worry, there will be problems, but we know how to deal with it. And I've been doing production of merchandise, from like T-shirts to all kinds of stuff, for the last 12 years. So I know what's involved in dealing with the factories and big production runs and organising people. So it's not scary, and it's just about getting a really professional team together that are going to deliver, and getting all the the systems in place, and making sure that you talk to people. You just don't disappear for 3 months and not answer any messages, and as long as people know if there's any problems, and that's part of the whole process. I think people want to be part of it and know what's going on, the good times and the bad times. And of course, my fantastic wife is a brilliant organizer as well. So we've got a fantastic group of people involved, and also Angus Abranson, his Chronicle City business, are doing our print production. So we've got their involvement managing that side of it. We've got the Clockwork Goblin guys on the miniatures side managing the miniatures production.
Yeah.
So there's the load has been spread across a lot of people, which is good.
Yeah. Now, we were talking just before we started recording about the fact that initially you were coming up with the miniatures line first.
Yeah, I was going to do. I got all excited. Let's do a Kickstarter. And I had the idea for doing the miniatures, and I've been thinking about, obviously, the main Kickstarter. I thought, oh, you know what, let's do the miniatures first. We've got lots of good ideas. We had an initial sculpt idea, some artwork. And I then took a step back and said, actually, you know what, let's actually ask all the fans. So we did all this questionnaire, promoted it, got lots of feedback back. And people said, no, give us the books first and, do the miniatures later on. And...
Right.
And also it made sense, that, because the thing with Kickstarter is once you do one, you kind of have to really fulfill it before you're doing another one. And
certainly,
and also from the bigger picture is we've got adventures coming out next month. There's releases happening through the year up until the Kickstarter stuff comes out, and it's crying out to have those two core books, because they're the foundation of the whole world of playing in the Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu universe, or the Savage Worlds universe, with Achtung Cthulhu. So we thought, you know what, we've just got to get those books done first, and then everything else kind of comes off the back of that.
Right.
And we've been able to fund the miniatures anyway. So
yeah,
good.
Okay, so you're mentioning about things like alternative poses if we get that far in this Kickstarter or have you, and obviously the little miniatures game as an add-on.
Yeah.
Especially considering your tie-in with artists from people like Fantasy Flight, and the fact that Fantasy Flight, have a big line in their Arkham Horror section. I mean, is it a consideration of yours to kind of take this further as far as, producing maybe, more miniatures, more miniatures games, that sort of thing, and expand the universe that way? Or
definitely, yeah. I mean, one thing is I do love all the other miniatures companies out there, and we make an effort to promote them as well. I mean, we've been doing this fun little web comic called The Forest of Fear, which we did episode 1 of, that you can download for free from our website and RPG Now. And it's miniatures photographed with this really cool terrain with dry ice, and a little script. And it's about a bunch of it's called Charlie Company, and they're on this mission into some forgotten forest to attack a German secret base where apparently they're developing some super weapons. And of course they get ambushed, and literally about 8 of them escape. And at the end of episode 1, they meet this RAF officer, British RAF officer, and 3 commandos that have crashed in a plane. And so there's this sort of little band of heroes growing. And of course they realise they're going to have to go back into this ruined monastery that actually sits over some sort of mythos ruins. And so we've been using different companies' miniatures in that and promoting them and saying how wonderful they are. And because I think, there's lots of other kind of weird war and Cthulhu inspired World War II miniatures out there that are brilliant. And so what we're not trying to do is redo what someone else has done. We'd rather do new stuff and also show how they can all fit together. Because I see the more people doing great kind of sort of horror adventures in World War II, the better.
Yeah.
Because it encourages the World War II scene, it encourages the sort of fictional World War II scene. So we hope to do more selective miniatures. We're not going to do a line of, US infantry and German infantry. There's no point, because there's people like Bolt Action and Artisan and others that do them really, really well. Yeah. So we'd rather kind of work with everyone. But definitely we're going to expand. We're looking at a board game, a miniatures board game, and we're looking at a normal kind of board game. And we want to grow our own little fun war game system that is very much not too serious, not too detailed, very much about playing really fun, easy kind of war games. So you can stick all your soldiers on the table or just have a sensible battle as well.
Right, so it sounds like there's a huge amount of scope for the future as far as Achtung Cthulhu is concerned. It's certainly something that isn't going to go away anytime soon. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, we've got this big plot, and whilst the core books introduce the world of Achtung Cthulhu, we have our heroes, and it's a bit like Star Wars. You can go and play Luke and Han, playing through the sort of classic stories of Star Wars, or you can just be other characters in the universe. And that's what we're trying to create, is there is this big plot and a storyline around our 6 heroes, who are the 6 miniatures that we've unlocked and you can buy. Right, okay. And there's going to be some fiction about them. They reappear constantly throughout all the books, being referred to various missions they were on that is leading up to an epic climax in the Achtung Cthulhu universe. And we've got a whole kind of plan of what's going to happen after that, for example. Right. So you can get excited and play their story, and there's going to be the kind of official campaign for the heroes as well, which is another stuff. We're going to do that sort of episodically. Or you can just play your own missions and adventures from the other campaigns, or stuff that you dream up yourself within the secret war, within the kind of world that we've created. And that's the exciting thing I love. So we've created these 6 very strong characters. You've got an American GI, a sergeant, who gets caught up in a thing called the Stratford Affair in the UK, ends up with this sort of mythos, killing Thompson machine gun with massive bullets. You've got a French resistance agent who, in a mission, she ends up bonding with some terrifying creature who kind of perches on her shoulder that loves devouring Nazi officers' souls. So she's like become the assassin of the French resistance, running around killing Nazi officers, and she's a bit worried what happens when she runs out of Nazi officers to kill. And she's the character on the front cover of the Investigator's Guide, this kind of real hot-looking resistance girl. Oh, right. Yeah. Then we've got Natalia, who's a Russian tank driver. Of course, there was a lot of women in the Russian army.
and she's in Belarus, where during the war, and evades capture by going deeper and deeper into the massive woodland forests, and finds some ancient ruin and finds this sort of terrifying power in this ruin, and now has this otherworldly creature sharing her body. And so she lets herself get captured by German units, and then of course they're never heard from again. And then there's a Professor Richard Deadman, who's our kind of Miskatonic University character, who is the miniatures. I love the miniature. I told the team, so what I'm imagining, this sort of Greek hero, Perseus and the
Medusa head.
Yes. Because he originally had a torch in a book, and I was like, it's really boring. Who wants to have a miniature with a torch? So I said, look, imagine it's Perseus and holding out the Medusa head. So that became the Migos head.
Right.
And he's, reading bravely from this. You could just imagine him advancing forward, calling on the power of this Migos head and some sort of ancient power from his Tomb of Spells. So it's suddenly become a kind of okay figure to like, wow. And that's what I wanted all the miniatures to be like. Wow, I want to be him or her, So we're having a lot of fun. And I remember reading a book about how they came up with all the Star Wars merchandising, because it was like the first time it was really done. And they said when they were coming up with all the sort of the figures for it, that they were just standing around the boardroom posing with broom handles. And so that's we're kind of enjoying that process of being able to dream up really, really cool stuff that people are going to love.
It looks like from looking through the Kickstarter that you've actually got a fairly staggered delivery date on several of these items.
Yeah.
Just want to go through, when you're expecting to get everything sorted as far as this is concerned.
So, the main books that we wanted to fund, the Investigator and Keeper's Guide, they're aiming to be delivered on PDF in August.
Mm-hmm.
And then in print, we think realistically, we've said late 2013, we think kind of September, October, although it could well be sooner, but I'm a big believer in being realistic.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen. And then the various guides and campaigns will be finished through the autumn and into the spring 2014, particularly Assault on the Mountains of Madness, we said is most likely March 2014. But it could well be earlier. But we're trying to allow lots of room for manoeuvre. Yeah. And actually, we've been careful. A lot of projects end up giving the same people more and more and more work to do and making the core book bigger and bigger and bigger. And we said, no, it's lots of different books and there's different people working, writing each of the main books. There's a little bit of crossover, but what we've avoided is one small group of people getting really overloaded. And of course, the risk that someone gets ill or can't do it, and then that's when you have the major delays. So we've been careful to get good creative people, and the big thing with Achtung Cthulhu is and Sarah Newton started the trend that it's very well researched, very well thought out. It's not silly pulp stories. It's grounded in fact and with a cool layer of fiction, and so, rather than necessarily go for just big name writers, we've gone for people who are really passionate about that particular region. So like people who are really into the Eastern Front, who we know have written before and can deliver, because we know they're going to come up with much better content than just someone who, I'm a really good role-playing writer. Of course, anyone could do the research, but if you are passionate about it, you discover stuff about World War II that you would never know existed. So, and Lynn Hardy, who's our kind of lead on the whole project, is an amazing researcher and has been digging up the most incredible stories. Like, there's this guy, right, who in World War II, he is a not very well known character. And it's one of the things I love about Achtung Cthulhu is that we can bring to life stories of people who actually existed, who you wouldn't believe, you'd think it's a role-playing story. So there was this guy called Wild Jack Howard, right, who we came up with, and he's based on a chap called Sorry, no, this is Wild Jack Howard is the real character, and then we created the character called Lord Alexander Teuton.
Right.
So Charles Henry George Howard was the 13th Earl of Berkshire, right? The 20th Earl of Suffolk. So this dude is your classic running around the jungle with an elephant gun hunting, owns 2 pistols that he's given them names.
Okay.
And he has his personal butler, driver and secretary that never leave his side. And during the war, or just as the war broke out, this is the kind of people he's mixed with. First of all, the Norwegians give him tons of heavy water to get it away from the Germans. The French give him crates full of diamonds so that the Germans don't get it. And he rounds up about 50 scientists, leading scientists, and makes a dash for Bordeaux to keep ahead of the Germans who are actively hunting him. Commands a cargo vessel, gets across to Britain and delivers all this stuff to the Ministry of Defence.
Yeah.
Here you go. And it's like an adventure film. And but this really happened. You know, this guy really achieved this. I mean, it's amazing what he did. So that's what I love about Achtung Cthulhu. We're actually kind of drawing out a lot of real stories and kind of twisting them a bit to be part of the Achtung Cthulhu universe. But we're also at the same time promoting who the real characters were. I mean, in Sarah Newton's first release, Three Kings, we talked about the Three Kings, who are a real resistance group in the Czech Republic, who fought very hard and died, sadly, in the end, to help free Czechoslovakia from the Germans.
Yeah.
And in the back of the books, we're also putting a guide to really great memorials and war museums you can visit around Europe to find out more. Because what I hope that I'll do is, not everyone's into World War II, but you throw in a few monsters and suddenly people get really excited. So I hope people will go, oh yeah, my dad was in the Navy or was an airborne or something, and want to find out more, because they have so much fun driving Sherman tanks and jumping out of planes and fighting Shoggoths in Berlin and, whatever that is. I hope that will inspire, everyone to kind of discover more about people who, amazing characters that kind of gave their life or just achieved so much,
Mm-hmm. Well, Chris, it's been fantastic to talk to you. The way the Kickstarter is going at the moment, it looks like even with 7 days to go, it's been going superbly well, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, fantastic, and we think we're going to unlock a few more exciting goals yet, and it's been an amazing experience. I mean, it's just been so incredible to have all the support of everyone, and there's been some real core backers that have supported us and promoted us and, just got on board, which is brilliant.
Mm. Well, I mean, I must admit, I'm from somebody who is, as I say, not played an RPG system for several years, to say the least. It's something that's really got me kind of enthused about the whole thing and looking at the possibilities of incorporating it into existing miniatures games and looking at, as I say, the miniatures concepts you've got out there and stuff that we've seen are absolutely brilliant. And, that's something that I'm kind of looking forward to see how, where that goes in the future. I've certainly enjoyed, looking at Achtung Cthulhu, and, it's got, as I say, even our conversation tonight has got me interested in diving into the adventures that are already available and, finding out more about the project. So,
right.
It's been a real eye-opener, it has to be said, and it's something that I'm looking at in the future and kind of going at this point, hey, this is something you can really do something with. So,
thanks a lot. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, no, it's been great to chat to you, and I wish you all the very best with the last week or so in the Kickstarter, and I hope that we can catch up again sometime in the future, and we can talk about the expanding universe.
Absolutely, and there's more to come. Mutant Chronicles is next. So.
Yes, I did notice that you got a tie-in with the Mutant Chronicles Kickstarter. There's been I noticed that there are some mentions of a tie-in with that one that's going on at the moment.
We're rebooting the role-playing game.
Right.
that was big in the 90s, and Prodos guys behind Warzone, are rebooting Warzone, the miniatures game.
Yes.
So yeah, we've been working together on that, and we're bringing out the role-playing game later this year as well. So lots of fun, and more to talk about another day with that.
No, that'd be good to come back on that one. That'd be good.
Sure.
That'd be good. Okay, well, so thank you very much for your time. It's been great to chat. And,
thanks a lot.
So the best of luck with Achtung, Cthulhu.
Okay, cheers.
The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is very happy to be sponsored by Coat d'Arms Paints. Now, Coat d'Arms have been supporting miniatures painters with their products for well over 20 years in some way, shape or form. Their current range is 150 sets of acrylic paint, which are available both as individual colours, but also in paint sets depending on period. Things such as the Ancients paint set, the World War II German, World War II American, World War II Russian paint sets, and they also include things like an ACW set and even a Horsetown set. That's one way to purchase your paints. And they also do triads. Now, if you're a fan of the 3-colour system made famous by the likes of people like Kevin Dallimore, you may like to purchase your paints with a dark shade, a medium shade and a highlight. And the triad system from Coat d'Arms allows you to do this. They also have ranges of textured paints called Brushscape, which allow you to paint from textures onto bases as well as colour. And these are ideal especially for smaller scale models. And if you're a fan of the dip method of painting, then Coat d'Arms have their own product available called Super Shader. This is available in light brown, dark brown and black. Coat d'Arms Paints have a whole range of products available to try. Check them out at www.blackhat.co.uk and be sure to tell them that we sent you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview. I certainly found it really interesting. As I said, RPGs are not something I normally cover in Meeples and Miniatures, and it's a whole different world. But I thought the Achtung Cthulhu idea was such a great crossover into, especially the idea of skirmish wargaming. It was just simply too good an opportunity to miss, to have a talk about it, and with the wealth of background material available. To say, if you do nothing else, the availability to get hold of all the background material plus floor tiles and that sort of thing on PDF for £35 seems to me to be a real bargain. There are enough World War II skirmish rules out there for you to be able to slot this in. That's how there's enough weird World War II rules around to certainly cater for this sort of thing in it. And certainly from my point of view, it's actually got me looking at Call of Cthulhu as an RPG system. I'm somebody who's old enough to remember when it originally came out, but I remember loads of people raved about it. Even when it first came out, and saying at the time it was one of the best role-playing systems out there. It's still available. I've just looked on the Chaosism website, and it's still available. It's $19 to download PDF. As in the interview, there's a set of quick start rules you can download for free for both Savage Worlds and for Call of Cthulhu, and they're actually available from Modiphius' website. Chris was saying that that there are a couple of things that they have already produced. There's a couple of kind of adventure modules they've already produced. These 0 point modules. They're available. You can download them off the website. I think they're either £7 or £10, £7 for one, £10 for the other. There's a deal on the Kickstarter that you can get both for a tenner. So there's several ways into this particular universe, should you wish to jump that way. As I say, something a bit different to consider, and in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the show and found it interesting. Okay, well, hopefully got a couple more Kickstarter interviews to do. I'm waiting for feedback and to organise a couple of bits and pieces. The next podcast I have planned, I'll be recording actually next week. Myself and Mike will be going to see Big Rich Clark from Two Fat Laddies, and we're going to be chatting all about Chain of Command, a new World War II skirmish game which is due out in the summer. So that's the real next planned podcast. As I say, I've got a couple of Kickstarter interviews which I'm hopefully going to line up in the next couple of weeks. The other thing which I'm really conscious that I need to do is that I have a whole load of miniature reviews to film, and so between now and Salute, expect to see an awful lot of miniature reviews appearing, and maybe not so many podcasts for the next few weeks, because I'll be concentrating on getting a load of miniature reviews filmed, edited, and so put together. Let's say I mentioned Salute. Obviously I'll have a Salute show for you. I'm effectively doing what I did last year, is I'm going down and I'm taking a recorder with me, hoping to grab a whole load of people for interviews during the day, so I'll have a chance to catch up with everything after that. So whereas March has been quite a prolific month for podcasts, they'll be a bit thinner on the ground in April. Well, perhaps I'll be thinner on the ground in April, so expect to see a couple early on, and then a whole load Salute based towards the end of the month. But in the meantime, check out the YouTube channel. I'll obviously put updates on the blog when all the videos come out, and then once Salute's out of the way, we can perhaps get back on a little bit more of an even keel, and I can go back to what I'd originally planned at the start of the year, which has kind of all got a bit turned upside down, especially with all these Kickstarter interviews I've been doing. And maybe, just maybe, we can start looking at things like the feedback show for episode 100, which was meant to come out 3 months ago. So we'll look at doing that then, once Salute's out of the way and I've got a little bit more time. Okay, thanks to everybody for listening to the show. Take care, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you want to know more about Meeples and Miniatures, there are several things you can do. First of all, you can visit the website at www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. If you want to contact the show at all, you can email me at neil@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. You can follow the show on Twitter. Simply look for M&M Podcast, or click the follow us on Twitter button from the website. We also have a group on Facebook. That's the Meeples and Miniatures Podcast Fan Club. Again, follow the link from the website. And finally, if you want to help us to support the show, you can always donate to the podcast by clicking the PayPal button on the donate page, again found on the website. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope you've really enjoyed the show. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.